When you're ready to run a classroom in GoGuardian, what you're going to do is just find your class and go ahead and click Start Class. The class will default run for the next 45 minutes. I already have a session open for the Regents testing class, so I'm going to just go to class right now. Now you'll see that I already have that class open. You can actually have more than one class running at the same time. If you did do that, you would be able to toggle between your two classes by clicking between them up at the top of the screen. And when you go into the class, you'll also see both of your classes right up here in the top view. Now, this session has been running and there's currently 8 minutes remaining. So, one of the things that you can do is you can always add extra time to your class by clicking on Update Time. And I'm going to say extend my session by 30 minutes. So now my new end time is 2:06, and I'll update the session. Typically, you wouldn't do that because you want your classes to end at the end of the class period because your students are then going to go to another class and you don't want to be controlling their Chromebooks. So it's super important when you are starting a class so that you're only running a class for the class period that you're currently teaching. So if I'm going to run a class during fourth period, I need to make sure that at the end of fourth period, my class either ends naturally or I physically end the session, because when these students move on to fifth period, I don't want to still be controlling their Chromebooks. Okay, so let's go back into the session. When you're in a session, the first thing that you're going to see is that you will see a little you're going to see actually everybody's screen who's in your class. So these are all the students that are enrolled in this class. Now, currently, I only have 3 active students. The rest of them are all offline. But in most classes, all of these screens would be active and you would see exactly what the student has on their screen. If I click on their screen to expand it, I can see what they're looking at. If they happen to go to another website or they click on something, I'm going to see that happen on my screen as well. Now, I can also see, there's a bunch of things I can see here, but I'm just going to close this for just a second. One of the things that you're going to notice is that you can select students here. So I can select all of my students. Typically, it defaults to everybody who's online. So right now, I only have 3 students in this class online. But if my entire class had their Chromebooks out and they were all logged in, when I clicked this, it would select all the students in my class. And then when I use these controls up at the top, whatever I have selected here, that is who is going to be controlled by my commands. So for instance, I could say, you know what, I really only want to control these 2 computers. So if I was to say open tab now, and I'm going to force them to open up a website like fmschools.org and just say open tab. For these 2 particular students who I had selected, their screens are now going to open up and they're going to be directed in the forced open of the FM website. And you'll notice that also happened with this student because I had them selected. So if you select screens at your main screen and then you use the tabs up here, these actions are going to apply to all of the student screens that you have selected. Now, if I click on an individual screen like this one, and now I use the tabs here, these commands are only going to affect the student that I have selected. So it's only going to affect this student's Chromebook. So again, if you want to affect the entire class or a group of Chromebooks, you would select them at this main screen, and then you would use the commands at the top. If you want to if you want to command just a certain student's screen, you would click on that one student's screen and use the commands at the bottom of the screen. So you'd have the same exact commands. Now, I do want to point out there's a couple of little things that settings here just for you to be aware of. First of all, student groups. So if I was to click on student groups, I can create groups within my class. So for instance, if I had like a group of 5 students that I wanted, the entire class is going to work on activity A, but I want these 5 students to be working on activity B, I may want to actually create a group for this class and put those 5 students in that group. And that way I can kind of see them separately. And then if I wanted to open up a tab for just that group, I could go ahead and do that. Most of the time, people do not create groups within their classes, but you have the ability to do that. And if it's helpful for you differentiating instruction or having separate activities for different members of the class, then you absolutely can create groups within your class. Also, I want to point out up at the top here. So right now I have the chat turned on. What this means is that I can send messages to students and students can also send messages to me. However, students can never send messages to each other. So they are only able to message the teacher if this is turned on, and I can message them. Student to student messaging is never allowed in GoGuardian. Also, there is a section here that you can turn on for off task alerts. Now, it says the subject that I have is not supported at this time. Now, I have my class set to be the subject of technology and computer science. So it doesn't really know how right now the program cannot support that. But let's say my class was a math class. Now I could have this set turned on so that if a student was working on sites that were unrelated to math, it would send me an alert as my teacher. So this is an option that you can turn on and off. Obviously, it's not going to work for all subject areas, but it does work for some of the basics like art, music, science, or math. I'm going to just turn that off right now. I also have some settings here that, obviously that's the same settings, but I also have the option to apply a scene to my entire class. Now, we're going to talk about scenes in a moment, but you can create a scene that restricts your students' ability to go to certain websites. So, for instance, if I chose the Schoology assessment scene, that's a scene that I have set up so that students are only able to use this, they're only able to access Schoology assessments and no other websites during that time. So if I was doing an online assessment through Schoology, I might want to add this scene and apply this scene to the entire class. What that would do is it would close all of their current tabs and only allow them to go to a Schoology assessment. We're going to talk about scenes in the next section, so I'm not going to be talking about applying and using scenes during this section. So what are some things that you can do when you're in when you have an active classroom? So first of all, if I click to expand a student, now obviously I can do all of these commands for the entire class, but I'm going to show you just on the individual student screen so that you can kind of get a more detailed view here with a larger view. So first of all, I can lock their device, and if I do that, I can send a message to. I can say, "Look up front." Okay, and lock their screen, and they're going to get a message on their screen that it's locked, and they have a message coming up on their screen that says "Look up front." Now, if I want to unlock the device, I just go ahead and unlock it. I can take a screenshot. So this is where, like, if I'm looking at what my student's doing and I'm like, they're kind of off task right now, and I want to just make note of that, I can just go ahead and say, take a screenshot. It's going to document the date and time and also show a picture of what the student was looking at on the screen during that time. I can also open up a tab for this student by just clicking on this and just typing in the website that I want them to go to. So let's say I wanted to open up CNN for them. I'm just going to say open tab, and it's going to take precedent over everything else they're doing, and it's going to come up here and just load this website on their screen and bring that screen right up to the front. Now, they do still have 7 other tabs open. So, and you'll notice that the GoGuardian chat opens as its own separate tab right on the computer. So the students would see it right at the bottom of the screen. So just keep that in mind, and we're going to show you chat in a moment. But I can close any of these tabs. So if I say, you know what, oh, I see they were making a pass to the library, they're off task, I can just hit close, and that is going to close up on their screen. Same with this other CNN website. If I just hit close, that's going to close that tab, and the student will, that will just be closed. They won't have access to it. I can actually go to actions here and I can say, you know what, I want you to make this their active window. And so now that's going to open up the Fayetteville Manlius School District website as the active website on the screen. Just give it a minute. It just takes a few minutes. I must have hit the wrong one. There we go. There it is. Now that's my active tab. Other things that I can do here under more is I can make an announcement to the student's screen, and I can just type in what I want the announcement to say. And that announcement in text will pop up right up on their screen. Other things that I can do is I can annotate their screen, which basically just means is, first of all, I can choose a pointer and a pointer size, but I can click on different areas of their screen to draw attention to it. And what that does is it puts like this little circle right on the screen so the student knows that that's where I want to draw their attention to. In addition, I can also exclude the student from the session. So let's say I'm about to force all of the other students in the class to go to a certain website, but I want this student to keep working. I can just come here and say exclude the student. And now when I do commands for the rest of the class, they will be excluded from those commands and they'll be able to just continue to work freely. Now, you'll notice there's also a chat tab here for the student. This is a chat that I've been having back and forth with the student. So I would say, how are you doing with question 1? I mean, whatever it is that you want to ask them, that is going to pop up on their screen. And then the student also has in their taskbar a GoGuardian window, and they can type back to the teacher. I finished that question. It was fine. And you'll notice that I just acted as a student and replied to the teacher, and this whole chat history is going to remain open, and it also stays recorded. Now, everything that I just did with the student, I can do with the entire class as well. So if I come up here and say, you know what, select all my students who are online right now, I can lock their screens just like I did. I can open up a tab or a new website for them. I can also exclude any of these students from the session so they can work freely while I command the screens of the other students. I can also, again, apply a scene like for testing or something like that. But under more actions, I can also present my screen to all of their screens. So I can share my screens and I can also make announcements to all of the students. So let me say, do the presenting of a screen. When you go to present a screen, you're going to have some options here. So number one, I can enable my microphone so that when I'm sharing my screen that they're also going to hear my voice as I'm speaking. I can also record my presentation that I'm giving to the class. So I can record the entire thing and turn that on if I want to. I can also lock students to the presentation, which means it will prevent them from looking at anything else while I'm presenting to their screen. Typically, I think you would want this turned on. If I'm sharing my screen with them, then I want them to be looking at my screen and not being able to go to other screens as well. The enable camera just allows you, this was actually disabled by our administrators, but it's kind of like that picture in picture. So we are only able to display our screens, not a photograph of myself in the corner of the screen. Okay, so now I would select the students that I want to present to, and I can select all of the students by clicking on this, or I can just select to certain students and just select their screens. And I'm going to choose what I want to share. Which window do I want to share? I'm going to say I want to share this YouTube content page. So I'll go ahead and share that. And now all of the students are seeing this on their screen. They're also hearing my voice as I'm speaking because I enabled the microphone. So now I'm essentially what I'm doing is broadcasting my screen to all the students. And when I'm ready, I can just go ahead and say stop sharing, and then that will bring me back. I'll go back into, and then I will just say stop presenting here. And now I'm done presenting and the students can look at their screens again. So I'm going to go back to screens. You'll notice that when I did that, what it did is it it's taking me to different tabs at the top of the screen here. So again, let me just show you what's up here. This is a timeline for each of my active students and shows me exactly what they've been looking at and at what time they switch screens for every single item. So this student was on the CNN website with no other tabs. And then here they went to the Fayetteville Manlius School District. And then here they're at the GoGuardian chat page. And so you see a running timeline of everything that your students have done. These are screenshots that I took during the session. So I took it of this student, student 19, and this was the screen. And I can actually download these pictures or save them to my drive. So it's keeping a record of all of the screenshots that I've taken in case I want to, pull up to the student and say, well, I have proof that you were off task during the session. Here's the screenshot showing the time and what you were doing. So you just have that proof. Okay, I can also, when I did call students, I can share my presentation, which is what I was at before, but you can also do a video call to students or a voice only call. So let's say you're watching the student screens and you're like, these 3 students really need a little clarification. I could do a voice only call and just have my voice broadcast to the 3 students and just say, let's do a check in. How are you guys doing? I see that you're off task. Do you have questions? And kind of have a live conversation with them. You can do the same thing with a voice and video call. So what that means is they would see you and you would actually, or you could present your screen during that time, or you can share your screen just like I did previously. Some of the other options here, they do have a special tab just for Pear Deck. If any of you are familiar with Pear Deck, it's kind of like an interactive add-on to Google Slides and PowerPoint. Pear Deck does have a relationship with GoGuardian, so you could actually launch Pear Deck presentations through GoGuardian, and that's what this is for. We're not going to cover that here because Pear Deck is not really something that our district necessarily subscribes to, although if you do use Pear Deck, you're more than welcome to check this out. And then check-ins. These are just different ways for me to send messages to my students. So if I wanted to see what student 19 was doing, I can pull up, and this brings up the whole chat log of any messages that I've sent to this student during the session. So essentially, this is basically what you have access to when you are using GoGuardian. Now, there is one other option that I did want to just bring up. If all of your you can unblock websites as well. So, we've had some issues where, sometimes our filter is blocking websites during class, and it's a little frustrating for teachers because you want the students to have access to a certain website. You don't want to have to call the help desk and wait for them to unblock it. If you run GoGuardian and a student is browsing, let's see, this student has, let's go to, we'll make this active. But let's say that this student is at a particular website and it got blocked. Okay, so they're doing their research, the websites get blocked, and you want to unblock it during the class period. You will see on their thumbnail right here where instead of it saying click to expand, it'll say unblock for all. So you will see right on the student's thumbnail this little icon that says unblock website. And so if you click on that, you can unblock the website for the rest of your GoGuardian session, not only for that student, but for your entire class. Now, does that unblock it indefinitely? No, it means the district is still blocking the website, but as me as a teacher, I have control during this Go Guardian session and I can unblock the website for now while my class is trying to use it so that I don't have to waste any class time. And then afterwards, after class, I can call the help desk and say, my students were blocked at this particular site today, and I need you to unblock it. And you'll be able to, you have all of the receipts here. You'll have all of you can actually take a screenshot of the site if you want to and send that to the help desk and just say, please unblock this. It's something we're using in class, but you don't have to waste any of your screen time because you'll have that option right here where it will say click to unblock. So that is an option that you'll have as well. Now, at the end of your session, it is important to come on over and click End Session. This will end the session and end your control over those students' Chromebooks so that when they go to their next class, that you're not still controlling their Chromebooks. Now, if you are at the high school and your classes are 43 minutes and you have your class set to be 45 minutes, you're fine. You can just go back to classes. It'll end automatically after 45 minutes. And by the time they get to their next class, your session will have ended. But if you're not sure, just go ahead and click End Session. And when you do that, it's going to say, go to your classes, or you can see the timelines from the students that were in that class. But I'm going to say, go back to my classes, and it brings me right back to my main screen. And now I can go to my next class and start the next class and be ready to go.